Patrick Mahonic,
Here.
Timothy Lattimore,
Here.
Michael Didio,
Here.
Ryan Foley,
Present.
Michael Chapman.
Here. Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for a moment of silence? And please remember those folks who were victims of the riots in Baltimore and other locations in our country. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Madam Clerk.
Our sincere condolences to the family and friends of Donna Bruno, wife of Bob Bruno, Highway Superintendent for the town of Owasco, and sister of John Camardo, City Councilman. Robert Spalding, Cayuga County Highway employee for 46 years, uncle of Robert Ralph, County Highway employee.
Proclamations.
You want them read?
Well, I think we're gonna take care of the hospital
Next week.
next week. Certainly worth mentioning.
Okay. National Hospital Week is May 10th through May 16th. The proclamation will be presented next, on the 10th, I believe.
Thank you. I would like to acknowledge this evening members of the Leadership Cayuga class, Stephanie DeVito, Ellie McPherson, and Christina Thornton. So if you could stand, we'd appreciate it. Thank you. We'll move into public to be heard, and the first person to speak this evening will be Catherine Lawler. Catherine, you want to come right up here to the podium?
Hello, everybody. I've handed out, everybody's got this in the legislature, and I really don't have much to say. I offer questions if anybody would like to ask me any questions. I pretty well explained everything in this packet, type of thing, of what our family's gone through and the devastations that have encountered, and falling through the cracks of the Department of Social Services and other services in Cayuga County. That have been delays. I've got a brother that's in worse shape than he was when he went to a 4-month facility that I've been dealing with, and the many delays and conflicts that I've encountered, it's just been overwhelming.
Anything else, Catherine?
I think that's it. If anybody has any questions or solutions or.
I think everybody received a package of the information you provided and have taken a look at it. We're gonna have to digest it a little bit,
Okay.
okay?
Thank you very much.
All right, well,
everybody.
thank you very much. Mr. Baxter?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, at this time, I'd like to present Wayne Bishop from CH4.
And I think everybody got a copy of the presentation that has today's date on it.
All right, thank you. Hi, Wayne Bishop with CH4 Energy. I want to talk tonight about the regional digester project that we're trying to put back into operation. So a little bit about the project is we'll talk about the concept, the opportunity, the potential. So a little bit of the kind of regime we went through last time I was here. So really the reason why I'm here today is to talk about trying to secure a power purchase agreement or energy service agreement for the project. And we'd like to put this power back to about half the load back to the campus, existing campus buildings and infrastructure, and then half the load back remote net metering to Cayuga County. And so we'll talk about that. And so it's really about remote net metering, the energy service agreement, and the go-no-go decision. Is really, I'm just trying to condense this conversation today to really focus on the purpose of being here today. So in this slide, what I want to try to illustrate is the remote net metering concept. And in the upper section, what you have is basically the campus itself, the Cayuga campus, the district campus, I would say. You've got the generating facility, the public building, maintenance warehouse, the office building, and the nursing home. They're all on kind of a microgrid now that we are powering up, or we'd like to put back the power to those facilities. And then the cloud section is really where NYSEG's wires exist and how we would flow the power from the digester project to Cayuga itself to the county level. We'd like to power up existing infrastructure here. And then you've also got the ESCO sitting over to the side, which would always be sitting there, always supplying energy in case we come offline and or for forced outages or planned outages. So the energy would always be there. Every time you turn the switch on, the power is always gonna be there. That's not gonna change. What we're trying to explain in this situation is just how the remote net metering would work. And right now, it looks like there's, the way the net metering is structured in New York is it allows us to do this under a scenario called farm-based digester, or farm-based biogas. And so we're trying to qualify the project and quantify the project underneath this scheme, which I've laid out here through NYSEG, because the application would go through NYSEG to be approved. So, just wanna make sure I got that concept across. What we're trying to do in this agreement, this energy service agreement, is basically from CH4, from the digester project, the electricity would flow in the yellow lines to Campus Road, county facilities, and also the Cayuga County. And then the heat would also go to the county, or to the Campus Road project as well. And then the energy payments for that energy would flow back up to CH4. And this is a very clean, simple structure where it's bankable, it's straightforward, and there's only 2 contracts. And so we think this is the cleanest way to get the project done, and this is what the banks, I think, are most in support of. So this is concept 1, or option 1. Option 2 is a similar concept. The difference here in the delineation is that if we can't remote net meter the project as we just described, then we would use CAPUSA to be the intermediary to basically connect the dots. So CAPUSA would be the organization that would let us flow that power in a net metered application back to the county. And in this example, you can see that they're kind of in between, and basically the electricity and the heat still flow to those 2 entities. But in this example, the payments go up through CAPUSA and then back to CH4. So we like the structure as well. It's a little bit more confusing, a little bit more complicated, but I think it also gives CAPUSA a role and responsibility to come into this organization and help support it. So we've got those 2 options we're trying to figure out right now. We know that CAPUSA could do the connect the dots for us and make this happen. So what we're trying to find out from NYSEG is, will they accept the application, let us quantify and qualify as we've presented ourselves. So we're waiting for their feedback. So, with that said, what we're looking for tonight is a go, no-go decision. We think this is a great project. I think a lot of folks here that I've talked to are really in support of this project getting back into operation. And that's what CH4 is here to do, is to run this asset. So what we're looking for is a 10-year commitment on the energy service agreement at 8.5 cents. And that's not really CH4 asking for that, that's the banks asking for that. They wanna see longevity behind the contract, they wanna see a long-term offtake agreement put together. We're trying to bring a lot of capital into this project to set it up to be successful. And if we have to amortize that depreciation, if we have to amortize that debt over 5 years, it completely kills the project. We can support a 10-year schedule, but we can't support a 5-year schedule. So this may seem like a little iterative process that we've been back here at this table asking for this again, but this is really where this project is gonna make it or break it. So we're asking for a 10-year energy service agreement. If we can get this done, then we can get into contract with Cayuga County to take the asset over. We can raise the debt on the project, and we put this project back to good use. And there's a lot of things working in favor of this project right now, like the feedstock agreements I've been working on with the 2 farmers, the Grana, Cayuga Milk Ingredients. These are all people that want to help participate, get this project going again. And if we can get the county to stand behind this digester project and actually support it, what it was meant to be, and put it to good use is what we're here for tonight.
Thank you.
You bet. Any questions?
I have a question here first. When you talked in your concept 1 here, and you're talking about, or wherever it is here, you talked about moving heat out to the jail and the, okay, there's no way to facilitate that at this point.
There's only one component that's missing, and that's a heat exchanger
Yes.
to let us connect to the jail. We would be willing to put that capital in and get that set up.
Okay.
That's not a big deal. All
Okay.
the other piping and infrastructure, the heat exchangers inside the CHP, both on the flue gas and the water jackets exist. All that infrastructure's there, it just now needs to be put to use.
Okay. You say this is a go or no-go decision if you don't get a 10-year agreement, you know? Personally, from what I've seen thus far, I would advocate for a 5-year agreement. Let's see how this thing goes, you know, as we move down the road. 10 years is quite a stretch. I realize it's a steady rate and everything, but electricity could go down a little bit, whatever. I would hope that it, you know, somebody, if you need this for lending, might consider go with a 5 with some kind of a clause in there that, you know, we could talk about renewing in the 4th year, something to that effect.
Okay.
And see if there's any adjustment needed to be in rates as well.
Well, one thing, that's a good point, and I wanna expand on that a little bit. One thing we wanted to do in this energy service agreement is actually have a 10-year contract so we can satisfy the banks, but actually use a true-up mechanism and an index at year 5, so that neither the county or CH4 is taking a long-term hedge.
Brad, do you have any opinion about that?
Not as I said.
Okay.
It's an interesting concept, I'd like to
We
get
like
some more detail.
Yeah, we'd like to work off CPI. There's a CPI
Right.
index that's already published underneath ESA, so we'd like to use that index. That's what it's meant for. We think it keeps everybody kind of true and whole, and so nobody's taking risk.
The other thing I think I heard correctly today, if we wanted to opt out of a contract, you wanted 6 months' notice? Is that right?
Different contract.
Different contract, I'm sorry, too many contracts. Mr. Baxter, I'm sorry.
Wayne, I was just wanted to mention that, the initial contract you're talking about only applies to the campus at this point, not to the, net metering
We're asking.
off campus.
We actually want to do both, because we want to push all the energy back to the county, both at the campus level and at the county level. And we know that we can do this, and we know that we can remote net meter, and it actually gives us the ability to do that either with CH4 through NYSEG as an applicant, or through CH4 and Capusa back to the county. We would like to push all this energy back to here and put it to best use. And with the county and the campus, we can get, those are bankable entities that the banks will lend on.
Anybody else? Mr. Bennett?
Now, those rates that you're talking about, that's, you said you push it back here to the county office, then we'll say, that's coming back at 8.5 cents?
Yes, sir.
Now, how can you do that across NYSEG's lines?
Because the net metering allows you to do this. And we've actually had discussions with both NYSEG and Capusa, so we feel comfortable that we can take this position. That's what net metering was set up for.
Mr. Petcher?
I believe Fred said that, the last time we discussed this matter, that we'd have to pass a local law to go more than 5 years.
That's correct, yes.
Mr. Batman?
And what is the status, that when we talked about this in committee, the attorney was going to send a contract?
Yes, sir.
To CH4 and then get a response?
Yeah.
What's the status of that?
The
So-
contract was sent.
Yeah, Fred sent me the contract, energy service agreement, and it was already an existing contract that was executed, so I think that
Right.
adds a lot of value to us trying to get this done. I've already redlined that, and it's ready to go back. There was only a term that I was trying to figure out with Capusa versus NYSEG and CH4. I was trying to figure that out before I sent it back to you, Fred, but that's basically ready to go.
With no major changes?
There's no major changes, no more than what we've really talked about here tonight.
Mr. Lattimore?
Anytime the energy field is changing constantly, the governor has indicated that he wants to have a lot of microgrids, and I think the microgrid that we have out there, I think, can bloom into what the governor wants to send his money to. So I'm all in favor of doing what we have in order not to strand that asset that we have in the ground out there now. I just know that energy rates are gonna go up with the shutdown of our nuke plants, our coal plants, with the stringing of NYSEG's new wires, that is not gonna come cheap. Our ratepayers are gonna end up paying extra. I'm all in favor of getting 8.5 all-in cost rates, so I think that it's a good deal for the county.
Mr. Batman?
Well, just I guess my confusion with this is that this is a new proposal. The last proposal that we were looking at was 10 years. It was for the campus that's on water, with the option of purchasing additional energy, at our discretion, at our decision, at 8.5 cents. Now, as I understand the proposal, it's to enter into a long-term contract for all of our energy purchases. That's from my perspective, that's a new and fundamentally different proposal. Or do I misunderstand the proposal?
I don't think it's that much different than we talked about last time. I think we were trying to tee that up. I can tell you that we can't supply all the energy that the county needs. We can only supply a small portion of it.
But we would be committed to buying all of the energy that's produced at that facility up to the maximum of our need?
Yeah, I think that's where the energy service agreement has a little bit of language that we need to tighten up on. We'll basically be forecasting our capacity factors every year, so we'll know how much energy we're gonna deliver. And then the ESCO and us with Capusa, if Capusa's in with us, will manage that position with the ESCOs. So that never changes, really, from a dollar value base of power, and also, so really that's it, from a dollar base of power. So we are asking to push all this energy back to Cayuga.
Yeah, I
Well, the-
see
the
that
ca-
as different.
No, the county uses more than
Yeah, yeah.
that particular gen set
Yeah.
can produce.
Oh, yeah, oh, yeah.
So
we've only
we buy
modeled-
in excess of whatever's generated
Yeah.
there.
We modeled the first time, you may remember, 3 buildings. There was the post office, this building, and the mental health building. That fit really well with the load. It's basically spot on. So we think it's a great fit, so that's what we targeted. But what we're trying to say is we can't supply all the power to the county, so we wanna push the kilowatt hours back here. We know that those 3 assets fit pretty well.
Mr. Foley?
Yeah, on your second proposal, you say that it seems Capusa has kind of inserted itself into that process. And on the slide, you have, I guess, confusing. That's a confusing option. So can you just elaborate on that a little bit more?
Yeah, I think it's just another layer, just another piece of the puzzle, if you will. So I think from the bank's perspective, they're like, okay, well, who is Capusa? How does that work contractually? How is that bankable? To me, it's just a conduit that we're still using to get to work with the county. So to me, I think it's pretty clear and pretty clean. But I think from the bank's perspective, they're gonna be like, who is Capusa? How do they fit in? How do we get this bankable with Capusa?
Mr. Lattimore?
So your first option, just have a direct contract with the county, is Capusa's okay with that? It's not a,
Yeah, I met with Capusa today. They seem to be in favor of this. It actually helps get them off the ground and gets a project in their hands. And I see the value of what Capusa's trying to do, so I think we actually help facilitate them to reach their goals by this project. So I see it as a win-win.
Chairman, there's a question.
Pardon me?
The administrator's
Yes.
question.
Ms. Sinclair?
If I might, I think in this diagram, one of the new elements is the heat going from the digester to the public safety building. How would you anticipate that impacts the cost of heating that building?
So we're actually, what we're doing is we're calibrating everything back to a dollar per kilowatt basis, including the heat, so it's all on the same basis. Yeah.
Anyone else? Mr. Bennett?
Yes, now, what equipment out there is gonna become part of CH4, and what happens with the byproduct and the equipment we bought to transport that byproduct that the county is purchasing, you know, a couple trucks and stuff? Do you inherit that now, or do you buy them from us, purchase it from us, or?
So we're working on a lease structure right now, or we will be, if we can get this approved with Soil and Water. This lease agreement allows us to operate and maintain that facility over a 20-year period. Eventually, once we pay that asset off, then it would transfer in our name. The ground would stay with County of Cayuga. That wouldn't change. The existing the existing trucks that are being utilized, or I guess on a separate lease agreement, we need to talk about that, negotiate that. We do need those trucks. We need them to put back into operation to move the facility, or the feedstocks around. the byproduct is going to be where we're gonna be spending a lot of our money on the project, which is putting in a composter on the back end of this asset. Right now, that's not being monetized. All that digestate goes back to the farm fields to help them manage their nutrient levels. But we wanna do that and make compost. So we wanna actually create another revenue stream off that asset, off the back end of it. So, I hope that answers your question.
Yep, thank you.
Yeah.
With regard to the composting aspect, so I'm guessing that you anticipate building quite a large pole barn structure of some type to keep this material in, and then how about the odor that's produced in the process?
Well, to me, compost doesn't smell like odor, it smells like compost, and it smells earthy and it smells good to me, but I know other people have different receptors of that, so. We are planning to put this in kind of an enclosed building and have biofilters on that to mitigate odor. And then basically let us operate that facility around the year, so we're not having just a seasonal output, because we have to manage this digestate every day. So we're gonna put a cover over this, kinda like one of those white tent cover structures, if you will, and then evacuate that air through a biofilter to take those odors and get rid of them, and basically destroy those volatile organic compounds.
So you'd be willing to stand in front of any claims that come forth with regard to any ill effects from odor, that type of thing?
We do it all the time, sir, yes, we will.
I guess that's what I'm lacking, is I don't see the details, and I think I mentioned that in your last visit, and the devil's always in the details.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems pretty straightforward. You want 8.5 cents for electricity, that's wonderful. We've been there with soil and water, but, there needs to be less links in the chain, I guess. That's where the comfort level goes up for me.
Okay. Well, we're trying to make this as clean and straightforward as possible. That's why we're even trying to see if we can contract directly with NYSEG to net meter the asset. You know, the details, we've got the framework of how we wanna work with soil and water, but that contract has not been completely ironed out yet, because we have to have this contract. Otherwise, the lease agreement doesn't mean anything.
You have to have a contract, or can you have a letter of interest?
We need to have a contract.
Well, that's a little different than what we heard earlier. A number of years for a contract, and a letter of interest would be,
Well, the energy service agreement is what we're talking about, sir. So if that's the document, however you wanted to classify that, that's the document that we need to execute on. If we can do that, then we can get this project built and get it back into operation.
well, if that document is discussed further, can we talk about 5 years, or are you saying 10 or nothing?
We really need 10, it's not me asking for this, it's the
Well,
banks.
no, but I'm asking you, is that final?
If you're gonna tell me that you won't do a 10-year deal, then I'll talk about a 5-year deal.
I would advocate for a 5-year deal. I'd like to see how this thing plays out a little bit. I won't be here anyway, but, you know, if you're still around, great. And, you know, if this turns out to be the miracle save, even better.
Well, you know, I can try to present it back to the banks in a 5-year deal. I can tell you they're gonna wanna amortize their debt over 5 years.
Well, it's actually up to the body. Does anybody wanna take a straw poll at this time?
Absolutely not.
Pardon me?
No. I don't want a straw poll. I think this is in process in committee. It's a legal document. This is not, in my mind, this is not the place to negotiate the specifics of a legal document. And we were in process through committee. I think it needs to go back. I think this is really good information. But I'm opposed, if we have a straw poll, I'm gonna go like this. But if others want a straw poll, it's fine, of course.
No, very good. I'm just trying to give Mr. Bishop an opportunity here. If he sees there's some interest at 5 years, he's gotta go back and talk to, you know, financiers. Mr. Petcher?
Basically, what kind of time frame are you looking at for us to make a decision? You know, with the local law, we're looking at 2 months down the road?
Yes.
Before we can make a binding decision.
Okay. I think that timing's fine, to be honest with you. I think if we could get, as you spoke of, an LOI in place that would have the terms and conditions that we've, at least the framework of the deal, we could work off that for now until we could get this passed.
Mr. Baxter?
On this contract for 10 years, if it's gonna be a 10-year contract, and it's gonna be, look at it again at 5 years to negotiate price. If the county doesn't like the price, then there will be no second 5 years to this contract. So, to me, committing to the 10 years with a guaranteed price for 5, and the ability to actually cancel that contract because you disagree on the cost, I don't see the risk to the county for doing a 10-year contract.
I think the risk lies in the fact that we don't have any changes that Mr. Bishop would like to present back to our legal counsel. And I think has anyone here seen that recently, looked it over? I think we need to look it over and,
Well, we're not actually talking about the contract, Mr. Chairman, we're talking about the idea of the contract and discussing whether 5 or 10 years. Nobody's gonna read the contract tonight or approve it, and when it comes time that the contract is written, if our lawyer says it's no good, we won't be signing it.
Exactly. I wasn't
So-
thinking about approval this evening. I was thinking
Right.
about the changes Mr. Bishop said he has, and he has to send that document back.
Correct.
Mr. Lattimore.
Presently, Chairman, you have the power to exercise by yourself the extension of our gas and electric pricing now for the county. You can do a multi-year contract. If we see that the rates are dropping down and our ESCO now says that's a good buy, extend your contract and we'll blend the rate, you have that power.
Yes, but we've run that back through committee just to keep everybody informed.
Right, but I'm just saying that we take opportunity to save this county money. And I just think that we have a large investment in the digester. And I think what you're saying, Wayne, is you got a 5-year contract with a 5-year renewable.
You could look at it that way.
It's not it's renewable.
Yeah.
Mr. Foley.
From what I'm hearing from the chairman is that he just wants some more details about this and see how the process plays out a little bit more. I don't see anything wrong with getting more details on this before we come to any kind of conclusion. I think that may be beneficial to this whole process.
Well, I think as Mr. Bishop indicated, he may have to talk to his potential financiers on this deal, and we could, at this point, entertain the notion of providing a letter of interest in the arrangement of purchasing power at 8.5 cents for our present campus facilities, the jail and the present nursing home. Would that be agreeable? Mr. Runkle?
To move this meeting along, I would like to propose such a letter of intent be given to Mr. Bishop.
Anybody have anything to, Mr. Foley?
As Hans legislator Petrick said, it should be a letter of interest, not a letter of intent. Is that correct?
A letter of interest,
Correct.
okay?
Yes.
Mr. Batman?
That would say, I'm not opposed to that, just, what would it say? What are we interested in providing?
We're interested in the purchase of electricity at the present rate, 8.5 cents, for our campus as it sits now, the jail and the nursing home.
Yes, yeah, that's where we were.
But
Mr.
that will
Runkle?
give Mr. Bishop some information to take to the investors, and this will go through committee again. I agree with Keith that we should continue talking about this and asking questions and come to final resolution on it.
I can tell you that half the power doesn't economically work for this project.
Right.
So it needs to be all or none.
Okay.
Mr. Bennett?
Now, did I hear correctly that after 5 years, we have to renegotiate the price we're gonna pay for this electricity?
Actually, I'd like to clarify that. It's not a renegotiation, it's a index that we're gonna use to true up based on the cost of power.
It's a standard utility index.
It's not a means to get out of contract, it's not a means to separate, it's a means to readjust the energy pricing.
So if it doubles, then
It doubles.
it's gonna double, right? Okay, cause according to what I'm reading here, it says for a 10-year contract, 10-year agreement at 8.5 cents, and it doesn't say in there anywhere right now that it's, after 5 years, we're gonna basically renegotiate or revisit the pricing.
That's-
You know, it's a little misleading saying it's 10 years at 8.5. Go ahead, again. give me some more real good solid facts and information and legal stuff that we can all
Well,
look
I
at.
tried to put the framework of what we want out of the deal in this. I didn't try to get too complicated. Those details are in the ESA that we will push back.
Okay, great.
Mr. Petcher?
I'd like to propose that you pass, approve a letter of interest and not be specific about the campus or anything, that we're willing to buy the electricity at 8.5 cents and let it go at that.
Simply that the county is interested in purchasing power at 8.5 cents for its facilities.
Yes.
Is that agreeable?
Yep. I'd
Anybody
second that.
disagree with that?
Then make it a motion, please.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Baxter seconds. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we will generate that letter.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. Where are we at?
Mr. Runkle, did you have privilege of the floor?
Mr. Chairman, yes, I'd like to request privilege of the floor for Barbara Clary, a resident of Senate.
Barbara, if you come up to the podium, please.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and honorable members of the Cayuga County Legislature. I stood here about 17 years ago and proposed a master plan for the Emerson Park. And so I'm here tonight to support the present plan that you have in front of you for approval this evening. 17 years ago, we had a very large group of interested citizens, elected officials, business people who got together for about 2 years. We studied the park. We broke up into 5 groups. We accepted all kinds of recommendations, complaints, ideas, and we put them together in a plan that we still have. And I know that the new plan has incorporated many of these ideas that we felt were very practicable and very usable. And today, I would just like to say that some of the short-term and long-term plans look very good. The short-term plans for the hiking trails and the walking and the playground equipment, these probably are going to be some of the easiest. Some of the long-term plans are really wonderful and desirable, and it's going to take resources to do it. So that adopting this plan will actually give you a good plan to have in place for when we have these resources, and a good plan to use when we ask for more resources, if we do have some funding. I'd like to say that in that 17 years, though, a lot has been done. A lot of very visible things have happened in the park. You have a very good park commission, good park director, and we've seen a beautiful seawall go up. We've seen the pavilion being renovated with necessary changes to the kitchen. You saw the merry-go-round playhouse expand. They added new restrooms, which everyone was hollering about. They needed more restrooms in the park. You saw the Little League baseball field being developed. The Ag Museum has expanded. They have new exhibits. They have a nice education center there, and there's a soccer field back there. So there's a lot of things that have gone on. The landscaping is beautiful. It looks wonderful. The flowers are up every year, and the gardens are taken care of. So we've seen a lot in the last 17 years, but we still need to move forward. And I hope that tonight you will consider that plan and approve it. In going through my files, I had a big fat file for Emerson Park, but I found an interesting 1963 copy of an article that was put in the local newspaper, written by Walt Schoonmaker. Can I take a couple minutes to read a few excerpts? Okay. On July 14th, 1963, the Deauville Hotel caught fire. It was a beautiful Sunday afternoon. The Cowles chemical plant picnic was being held under the towering trees nearby. A small fire started under some steps of the 27-room hotel, and bellowed by wind off Owasco Lake, quickly worked through the structure. The fire, however, was not a spectacular one from the outside. The flames and smoke were confined mostly to the interior, specifically the second and third floors. Must have been an unusual sight. One by one, 5 fire departments in the area roared over the Deauville Bridge, bells clanging and horns blowing. The hundreds of people in the amusement park gave way to the vehicles. Even though the firefighters battled the blaze for over 3 hours before it was put out, it did little upset the park activities. The rides continued, the food booths and games proceeded, as did the company picnic. As the firemen poured tons of water on the building, many of the spectators apparently viewed it as just another source of entertainment for the day. People kept drinking at the bar while the firemen were outside, says Joe Padlick, owner of the amusement park. It is presumed they left only when the firemen started watering down their drinks. Thought that was marvelous. So, anyway, that was an article from 1963, and over the years I have heard so many people exclaim how they love that Deauville Hotel, the wonderful times they had there, all of the parties and the weddings and the times they had dinners. And I just encourage you to move forward with maybe this way down the road. Thank you.
Thanks, Barb.
Thank you.
Any other legislator have any requests for public to be heard? If not, we'll move along. Are there any committee reports or individual legislative report?
Got 2 minutes.
Pardon me?
Minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm trying to get this moving ahead here. I forgot about the minutes. Madam Clerk,
Minutes for approval, 3/24/15.
Mr. Didio? Mr. Didio?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Runkle?
I move that we waive the reading of the minutes and approve them.
Is there a second? Mr. Didio?
Yes.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Community college report.
We do, it did not make the box. Dr. Sinkyu was not here this evening. A few things going on at the college. The asbestos remediation project, which last month we approved $175,000, I believe, as basically a quarter of the cost. The state's gonna pay half the cost, and the College Foundation has agreed to pay the other quarter. Bids came in, and the actual cost is now down around 500, I would say, thousand. So the county's contribution will be considerably less than we thought, which is a good thing. Search for the president is continuing. There's been 3 candidates in, another one coming in this week, and we hope to have a recommendation in May at our trustees meeting for the new president of the college. Working on the 2015-16 budget. The state is giving an additional $100 per FTE, which will be rolled into the budget, so hopefully in June we will have a budget to bring before the legislature. And that's about it. One of our trustees, John Klink, is here. I don't know, John, if you have anything else to add? Okay, great.
Okay, well, thanks. Thank you, John. Are there any other committee reports or individual legislator reports? Mr. Didio?
Yes, sir. We have the Inter-County Association of Western New York. Want to give an update. Every month we have an update given to us by one of the New York state attorneys for the counties. And this past April, we had a meeting in Hammondsport. Mark Levine, one of the attorneys, gave an update to the members on issues of importance to counties in the approved state budget, noting every year the budget reinforces the role counties play in New York. In 2015 and 16, state budget includes additional funding to counties for public health, education, highways, gaming, agricultural, emergency preparedness, economic development, public safety, and juvenile justice. The final budget includes one-time use of $5.4 billion from state surplus. What these funds would be designated for was questioned. Moving on, the Auburn Community Hospital is putting together plans to open an addiction treatment care at the hospital with 6 to 8 beds. That'll be sponsored by or supported by local chemical dependent agencies throughout the area. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Anyone else? Okay. Ms. Sinclair?
Thank you. You have my current report in the box. I just wanted to make a couple of comments about it. Our expenditures and revenues both are at about 19% of the budget, for those of you who may not have read that earlier. We have continuing shared services discussions with the city of Auburn. And most recently, I wanted to point out that we had met with Kelly Anderson, Steve Tobin, Mike Russell, and Jennifer Indelicato with counterparts from the city of Auburn. And I just want to compliment them. It's really nice to have people who are very competent in their subject areas and very communicative and come to the table willing to work with other entities to try and save the taxpayers' money. So you should be proud of our representation that day. Let's see. Oh, I wanted to also point out, you have heard that I set up a meeting for Peter Jones to discuss the new agreement, assuming that it's approved, of course. But the new agreement with the department heads, the legislators are also invited if you have any questions that you want to have answered at that point.
Okay, any questions? All right, well, thank you. With regard to my activities, I just want to mention a couple of things. Tomorrow at 2:30, Loretto is holding a ceremony out at the County House Road Nursing Facility. It's to give thanks for that facility. The final moves of residents are expected to be mid-May. And we'll also have a follow-up meeting on Friday with Loretto folks to talk about inventory and the future plans there. Regional Planning Board, excuse me, met, as well as the Regional Economic Development Council. And while we don't have absolute firm dates, the window of opportunity for making applications has been expanded and moved off into the future a little bit. So that'll give us some more opportunities to talk with some of our regional counterparts. And as I had stated in previous emails, if anybody has any ideas and or thoughts where we might capitalize on some of these programs and monies that are going to be offered, please speak up. I spent a very enjoyable morning the other day with the Onondaga County executive, and we were at the Seward House for a presentation. They're going to be going forward asking for some revitalization funds for the area, and if they are granted, and it looks like they have a great plan, that'll certainly help to extend the life of the Seward House and its greater attraction. Ms. Sinclair, Mr. Didio, and I did attend the Maritime Sanctuary preliminary meeting in Oswego, and that's exactly what it was. It's to provide information that the waters off the shores of Cayuga and Oswego County would apply for a maritime sanctuary, and what that does, it protects the shipwrecks that lie there and any contents. Up till now, if you were a diver, for example, you could dive and you could remove artifacts, and as long as, I guess, if you didn't get caught with anything, you'd be all right. But this would preserve those, mark those. They'd be on future charts. Let's see. The NAACP dinner and awards are Friday night. Mr. Latimer's gonna pinch hit in there. Thank you very much, Tim. That's always a great dinner. I also want to say thanks. I know Mr. Lattimore made an appearance, Mr. Bennett, Mr. Baxter, Mrs. Baxter, for attending the emergency management training. That's good that several people were able to come there. And I wanna say finally, it's kind of a remarkable event. The Owasco Lake Group, that is very passionate about protecting the Owasco Lake as a water source and looking down the road to its future, made a request through Senator DeFrancisco's office for the sum of $679,000. Now, myself and Steve Lynch was aware of this, and some other folks, and we met with Matt Driscoll, we met with Bob Brower, Jim Beckwith a number of times. We met with Senator DeFrancisco, we talked to other people in Albany, but $600,000 out of that request was secured. And it should go a long way into helping Owasco Lake stay a viable water source for the future. So a great effort by those folks on that committee, and we certainly are very thankful. And that'll about it. Not yet.
Mr. Chairman, just
Mr. Lattimore.
a couple things. We also secured money from Senator Seward for the Dutch Hollow. How much was that, 100? 200,000, so we'd like to thank Senator Seward too for that additional
Sure thing.
200. And recently, Chairman, Mr. Ellis from Cayuga Milk went on a little tour with the governor. Any chance we could have him invited to maybe
Sure.
this platform to maybe discuss as to how it went?
I'll speak to him Thursday morning. How's that?
Great.
Anyone else? Okay, Madam Clerk.
Still writing. Appointments and reappointments. Cayuga County Planning Board, Darren Rooker, Port Bar, New York, Secretary for a one-year term, 1/1/15 to 12/31/15. Stephen Helser, Auburn, New York, his term will be, he serves until a new nomination is submitted. Board of Health, Ralph Batista, Auburn, New York, his term is 5/1/15 to 12/31/17. Fish and Wildlife Board, John Lawler, his term 1/1/15 until new appointment is made.
Mr. Didio.
Yes, I'd like to waive the reading of the communications and announcement. I'll move to,
Would you entertain making a motion to approve the appointments as read?
I will.
Very good, a second, Mr. Runkle, thank you. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Mr. Didio.
Yes. I move to waive the reading of the communications and announcements.
Is there a second?
Second.
And a second. Any discussion on any of those communications? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
We can move into regular monthly resolutions. Mr. Runkle, and when we get to the Ways and Means resolutions, could we address number 4 first?
First. Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, our regular monthly resolutions, 1A and 1B, have been through committee and approved, paying our bills from the period March 10th through April 13th, and all the claims have been audited.
Okay, any discussion on those? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Ways and Means has 3 resolutions. Let's discuss Ways and Means number 4 first, which is approving the collective bargaining agreement between the Civil Service Employees Association and Cayuga County for the period of January 1, 2015 through December 31, 2018. I present that in the form of a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Pinckney. Any discussion? We have tonight with us our Labor Counsel, Mr. Peter Jones from Bond, Shennick and King, to address any questions on the contract. Any questions at all? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, it's passed. Peter, thank you very much.
Next, I'd like to bundle Ways and Means 1 and Ways and Means 3, unless someone would like them separated.
Any discussion on WM1 or WM3? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Mr. Mahunik.
Mr. Chairman, Health and Human Services has 16 resolutions. They've been through both committees. I would offer them as a bundle unless anyone would like any separated, of course.
I think, do we have HH2 that has to be separated?
Yes.
So I will offer HH1 and then HH3 through 16. HH2 does require a 2/3.
Okay. Anybody have any questions or discussion, comments on those that are bundled? The entire list with the exception of HH2. If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
And HH2 restores the funding to the pool program with a plan in place for its continuance in the future with another entity.
Okay, any discussion on HH2? Mr. Foley?
For that plan, where are the details of that plan? Where are the details of that plan that we are basing this vote on?
Kathleen's here, so she can.
Right.
Yep.
It's a verbal agreement with the YMCA. I think some of the board members, some of the legislators here probably are involved in the board, so Ryan may have heard a little bit more about it, but it's a 2-year plan to transition the program over to the YMCA, but the details have not been written down. They've only been discussed in committee and in the meetings that we've had.
Mr. Foley?
Yeah, I mean, preferably, we would have, more than just, kind of a debate, of what we think the plan is going to be. I mean, I realize it's going to be a 2-year plan, but, just as we talked about, earlier, the devil's always in the details. I would have preferred to see something a little bit harder than just, well, we have verbal authorization, and it's nothing against, the department or anything, but, we can't just approve things willy-nilly around here, and I remember too, we tried to pass $2 to get rid of the $2 for the billing. We were trying to do it with the stipulation that it was, costing us money, and that ended up not being, found as well. It's still, out there, that it was costing us money or it wasn't costing us money. So, I guess, would like to see some details on these things.
Good. Mr. Whitman?
I'm with Mr. Foley that I'm not really a fan of the way, we don't have much in writing here, but we do have the ability to take it right back out of our budget next time around if it doesn't work out.
Any other discussion on HH2? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Roll call.
I'm sorry.
Oh, 2/3 vote.
Mr. Chair, since, do we have to have a roll call even though everyone voted yes? I'd be willing to bet that's
By
more
law, do
than
we need to
2/3.
have?
No, not by law.
Not by law. We can satisfy that it's unanimous.
Great.
Okay,
Okay, was all in favor? Okay.
it's unanimous. Thank you. Mr. Didio, Government Operations.
Yes, sir. Government Operations has 2 resolutions, GO1, GO2. I'll offer them as a bundle. They've been through committee, they've been fully discussed inside and out.
Okay, any discussion on GO1 or GO2? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried, thank you. Mr. Pinckney for planning.
Mr. Chairman, planning has 1 resolution before you, has been through both committees and seeks your approval.
Any discussion on PL1? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank
Thank
you. Mr. Whitman.
Mr. Chairman, Public Works has 8 resolutions tonight. I would like to bundle 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, and 9, unless anyone would like one of those singled out.
6, 7, and 9.
Which one?
Yeah.
I'm leaving out 1 and 5.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Bennett.
I'd like number 2 pulled out too, please.
Number 2 would like to be pulled out. Okay.
3, 4, 6, 7, and 9.
3, 4, 6, 7, and 9. Any discussion on those resolutions? 3, 4, 6, 7, and 9. If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Mr. Whitman?
PW one is an agreement, with Aces Baseball Club and Emerson Park for use of the ball fields.
Any discussion on PW one? Mr. Mahoney?
Just have to disclose that I do have a family member involved in one of those organizations.
Thank you. Any discussion on PW one? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
PW two is approving and adopting the 2015 Emerson Park Master Plan as recommended by Cayuga County Parks Commission.
Mr. Bennett?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. As I stated back in a committee, the Public Works Committee there the other day, I am a little disappointed that there was no mention or area provided for the Vietnam Veterans Memorial that they had asked for earlier, previously in this year. Other than that, I will support it.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor of PW two?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Mr. Whitman?
PW five requires a 2/3 vote as a bond resolution for paving.
Any discussion on PW five? Mr. Lattimore?
Mr. Chairman, did we not have leftover monies for paving? Are we adding this to with some of the money that we retained last year? Are we expanding the road program? Because it definitely needs it.
Ms. Sinclair, do you want to comment to that?
I'm not quite sure how to respond to it.
A, B, C.
I'm sorry, could you repeat your question, Mr. Lattimore?
I think there was monies left over in the road program last year. Is this in addition to those monies so that we can expand the road program? Or is this just?
Well, this is simply a vehicle for allowing financing of the road project. I mean,
I know it's bonding, but is the road program expanding with this bonding?
yeah, I don't
Or
know.
is it the same every year and we're falling farther behind?
Are
I
you
believe
asking
it's-
more miles? Are you asking?
Yeah.
Right,
You're
okay.
asking more miles.
Okay, I think George probably was in a better,
This is a more mileage, basically, it's federally funded, 50% state funded, and local administered federal aid project, so it would be in addition to what we normally fund for.
So we're expanding our road program, which I think the public wants.
Mr. Batman?
Yeah, I just want to say, I said this in committee, but repeat it here. I will vote for this because we certainly want to move this goes forward. But we're authorizing funding for a project that will not begin for 2 years. And it just seems to me, it's good to be on top of things, but the 2 years seems a little long. But that's, I will support it. I suppose it's better to be 2 years ahead than 2 years behind.
Any other discussion? Madam Clerk?
Tucker Whitman,
Yes.
Ben Vitale,
Yes.
Mark Farrell,
Yes.
Paul Pickney,
Yes.
Joseph Runkel,
Yes.
Keith Batman,
Yes.
Hans Petcher,
Yes.
Terry Baxter,
Aye.
Joseph Bennett,
Yes.
Frank Reginelli,
Yes.
Patrick Mahonik,
Yes.
Timothy Lattimore,
Double it, yes.
Michael Didio,
Yes.
Ryan Foley,
Yes.
Michael Chapman.
Yes.
Passed.
It passed. Thank you very much.
Jim?
Judicial, Mr.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, if I might, I'd like to put PW 8 up for a vote, but I'd like to amend it, if that's possible.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Mahonik seconds. Go ahead, Mr. Vitale.
Thank you. Since we've been continuing to work on the county and city motor pool, we have shown that there's some short-term savings with the project. Ms. Sinclair has shown that there's probably gonna be about an $8,000 savings per year for the first 3 or 4 years. county employees report that they'll be able to actually increase their revenue by being able to work on some of the larger vehicles that they can't currently work on. And ultimately, the big savings with this project is by working with the city and the county together, and we can plan for the future on a facility that will be able to actually take care of our larger equipment inside. We will be able to access more grant money with the collaboration of the city and the county. So as a result of that, I would like to put forward a resolution of the Cayuga County Legislature expresses its continued interest in moving forward with a plan to co-locate the Cayuga County Motor Pool and the City Motor Pool at Genesee Street, City of Auburn, and be further resolved that the Cayuga County Attorney is hereby authorized to continue negotiations with the Corporation Council to develop a memorandum of understanding to submit to the county legislature for its consideration.
You have all that?
No.
Do you have that written?
Yes, we can provide that for you.
Do you have that written and available for the clerk right now?
Right now,
I can make copies in 5 minutes if you want to put this farther down on the agenda. But if I understand it, if I might get, you're not bringing PW 8 to the floor, you're bringing your motion to the floor.
correct.
Just
Yes,
to-
I'm
just to be
trying
clear.
make an amendment to the.
And Mr. Mahonik, you're seconding the motion and not PW 8? Correct. Okay. 5 minutes?
Yeah. If there's no objection, we'll hang on to that for a couple of minutes?
Yeah, absolutely.
All righty, great. Is there any other public works business? If not, we'll move to judicial. Mr. Baxter.
Mr. Chairman, Judicial and Public Safety has 3 resolutions. I would like to bundle 1 and 2 at this time.
Is there any discussion on JP1 or JP2? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Mr. Baxter.
JP3, authorizing a raise for the undersheriff and amend the 2015 budget. That requires a 2/3 vote. Further discussion of this matter, the sheriff will be taking that funding from his budget, which I believe does not take a 2/3 vote.
Mr. Batman?
Might I call for an executive session for discussion of the employment of a particular individual?
Is there a second?
Second.
Several seconds. Mr. Reginelli? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We will keep Mr. Under Sheriff Stoll, Sheriff Gould, Ms. Sinclair,
Chairman.
Mr. Westfall. Yes, sir.
Should we not start this executive session until our
County
lawyer comes back?
Absolutely.
I have to go to the men's room.
Mr. Lattimore?
Mr. Chairman, while we're just, before we go into executive session, the treasurer didn't give a report, but I've been asking our administrator about the increase in our sales tax, and I think what it was, I think Johnson Paper has retained some large clients, and they're doing some expansion work. And I think that those sales that they're doing out there is creating this additional income in our tax, so I just wanted to, I've been asking the question, how come we anticipate more sales tax when the rest of the state is not seeing that kind of growth? So it could be from our own local businesses, so it's nice to see, and we should, reach out to Johnson Paper and help in any way for their new expansion.
Mr. Bizzari, I overlooked the information I wanted you to purvey. Would you mind hanging around a few minutes? Sure. Okay, thank you. So we'll take care of this matter, and then we'll take care of that.
Do you want us to leave and just send credit?
Pardon me?
Do you want us to leave and send credit?
Yeah. Mr. Russell, could you stay as well?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Sheila, before you go, would you mind giving one to every legislator? That'd be great.
Couple bubbles.
Okay, we're back in regular session. We are looking at JP3. Mr. Runkle.
I'd like to make an amendment to JP three. In the second resolve, I'd like to strike the line to basically decrease our contingency account by $4,247, to change that to read, decrease the salary line by $4,247.
Are you trying to coincide with what Mr. Westfall came back with?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Second.
Mr. Westfall?
Do you want me to read that?
Sure.
Has there been a first and a second for?
Somebody second, who's second? Mr. Whitman.
Mr. Whitman?
It's my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that to be an additional resolve, it would be the third resolve that says that the funding for this resolution come from the sheriff salary line, account A31101 space 51001, by reducing the 2015 salary sweep by the amount of $4,247.
That's what I said.
That's exactly right. Excellent, excellent, an agreement.
Thanks, Ben.
Okay, Mumble.
Okay, Mr. Whitman has seconded that. Now, is there any discussion on this amendment?
Can it be a roll call vote?
There's a roll call vote, we can do that.
Simple majority.
This is simple majority? Yes. Simple majority.
Okay, all set? Tucker Whitman?
Yes.
Ben Vitale?
No.
Mark Farrell?
No.
Paul Pickney?
Yes.
Joseph Runkel?
Yes.
Keith Batman?
Yes.
Hans Petcher?
Yes.
Terry Baxter?
Yes.
Joseph Bennett?
No.
Frank Reginelli?
No.
Patrick Mahonik?
No.
Timothy Lattimore?
I'm voting yes with the concept that the sheriff and the undersheriff save us $100,000 because of the non-pension and the health. Yes.
Michael Didio?
Yes.
Brian Foley?
No.
Michael Chapman?
Yes.
Passed.
Passed. Okay, thank you very much. Now, we need to go back to Mr. Vitale's information. We have this printed information available now?
Yes.
Has everybody had it? Yes.
We voted on the amendment,
I'm sorry, Joe, you're absolutely right.
so we need to vote on the.
On the real resolution now,
Because
as amended.
I'm glad someone's paying attention.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
Can you raise your hand?
We got 4 there.
Foley, raise your hand.
Mahonik, Foley, Bennett, and Vitale, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Why didn't you?
Are we good?
Okay.
Everybody had a chance to look at Mr. Vitale's information?
No, sir.
Mr. Whitman?
I have a question. If I understand what Ben's trying to do, you're trying to continue the conversation so it doesn't stall out?
Just keep moving things along.
Okay, then I have a slight issue with fourth whereas, the word implementation. Can we change that to like development or something? It kinda reads as if we're gonna implement the MOU.
Right.
We don't have it yet.
I think, yeah, we got it. Well, Mr.
Stand by.
I-
1 second, Mr. Batman.
Well, I'm clarifying the motion.
My understanding of the motion from, I mean, he can speak for himself, but my understanding his motion was not all those whereases, but simply the resolve stuff.
The only thing I read out loud, there were the two resolved,
Right, there's a bunch of
speaking the other
whereases.
stuff.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
he
I
didn't
assumed
motion that.
Fred didn't
He
say
just
the
said
words.
the resolve. and
Well,
resolve
let's
simply
make
say
sure we're on the
moving
same
forward.
page. This document that's been handed out, Mr. Vitale, is this a document
This is
that
not what I
satisfies your
read.
motion?
What I read on this were the two resolved, that's all I read out of this document.
Well, my question is, does this document satisfy the motion that you wanted to make?
This would also satisfy it, yes.
We don't have the MOU as yet. I guess when we gonna get it, Fred? Later this week, maybe, or?
Later this week, first part of the week, I met with Mr. Rossi and the manager today. I expect it later this week or the first part of next week. My understanding is the city will be considering the MOU at its meeting on May 7th. So we're close to having something already.
So this, as I read it, this is to exercise or exhibit our continued interest in moving forward.
Correct.
Correct.
Good, okay. Any other discussion?
So,
Mr. Petcher?
so in effect, we're voting on the two resolves. Is that it? Nothing else? What are we voting on?
Need a translator.
What the chairman has asked me is if this whole thing can be voted on, and I said yes. What I read in public was only the two resolved, so
Is that-
it'll satisfy me either way.
So what is the actual motion?
The actual motion is the county legislature expresses continued interest in moving forward with a plan to co-locate the Cayuga County motor pool with the city motor pool on Genesee Street in the city of Auburn, and further resolve that the Cayuga County attorney is hereby authorized to continue negotiations with the corporate council to develop a memorandum of understanding to submit to the county legislature for its consideration.
Mr. Baxter?
Mr. Chairman, on the whereas that was brought into question simply states the legislature wishes to express its continued interest in moving forward with the proposed co-location. We're not voting on anything other than our interest.
Exactly. Mr. Whitman?
You continue reading, it says, and the implementation of an MOU, that's what I have an issue with.
Our interest in the implementation.
I'm not comfortable with the word implementation, that's my issue.
Would you like to make an amendment?
I would, I'd like to change the word implementation to development.
Okay.
second
Unless our
that.
attorney has a better
There-
word.
You may not need an amendment, you may not need an amendment. If I understand Mr. Vitale correctly, what Mr. Vitale is moving is
Get
the
the
last
whereases.
two resolves
That's fine.
and not the
Whereases.
whereases before that. So if the last two resolves solve the issue, then that may be enough for your,
Great.
for where you're headed. Maybe.
So the motion is, Ben, the motion is simply to utilize the last two resolved as your motion,
Yes.
okay? Any other discussion on that? Mr. Bennett? No other discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
Mr. Whitman, Mr. Pinckney? Okay. I have one other item of business. I'm thankful that Ray Bazari was able to stick around. He's got some great news for us. Ray, you wanna come up? Sure. Everybody's got a copy of this now, right? You need a copy? No. Okay.
So, Lynn and I met with Suzanne and Mike today to give them some piece of good news. So if you did have the DSS budget in front of you, you would see in the training schools, which are very expensive, expenses for departments, they're like $800 a day. The state hasn't been charging counties for the past few years. Lynn's been budgeting about $300,000 a year, for those costs. We didn't get a bill, she's been carrying those in future years. So you got about $1 million in expenses in this year's budget. In the governor's budget that was passed by the legislature, they're not going to be billing the counties for those previous years, so we've settled up with them. We've got about $1 million in some surplus funding in that budget right now today.
Great.
Thank you, Ray.
Well, I'd like to take credit for it, but I really didn't do it, but
You
I
brought-
like to give you good news, so.
You're the messenger.
I'm the messenger, and I can't be shot now, so.
Yeah, but Ray, we know you know people who know people
Who know people.
who get down there, you know, so thank you very much.
A lot more money, yeah.
Mr. Bennett,
Motion to adjourn?
second by Mr. Didio. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thanks, Ray.
Take $4,274 out of that and give it to the sheriff. Give it to the city.